We've got Howell, Dotson, Chase, Montez, sprinkle in a little EB, both Eric Bieniemy and the OG EB. That's Eric Bickle from the Sports Junkies right here in the Daily Commanders update for June 16th, 2023. Let's go. All right, greetings and salutations. Welcome to the Daily Commanders update here on Ref the District for Friday, June 16th. I'm the Stoner. Nathan and Trev are both off today. However, you're not going to get just me. I have a special guest for you today. You can hear him every morning from 6 to 10 on 106.7 The Fan. You can even watch on NBC Sports Washington from 6 to 10 from the Sports Junkies. It is none other than Eric Bickle, also known as EB. And EB, the big thing now, a lot of people may not fully understand, you're now known as OG EB.
Yeah.
Where did you get the OG? Where does that come from? What is that
It's got, I mean, obviously I'm kind of goofing.
Right.
But it's a little jarring for me when they announced Coach Bieniemy was here and everybody started referring to him as EB. And, it's not like EB are uncommon initials, but I'd never really heard it. Everyone just talked about Eric Bieniemy. And then I was just like, wait a second, this guy can't take my identity. That's my brand. Yeah. This guy's taking my brand. This guy's going to be here for 6 months. There's no way I'm going to let him take over my brand. So it just kind of became a goof on air. And I made up some T-shirts or whatever. And, some people don't get it. They don't understand. I'm just kidding.
Right.
But I will say it is a little jarring when I hear people around here talk about EB. I have to check myself for half a second.
Right. You think they're talking about you.
Yeah, I'm like, wait a second. Who are they talking about here?
Yeah. All right, so let's get into the Commanders and the week that was this week. And a lot of this stuff you've already talked about on your show ad nauseum. But I did want to get your opinion on a few things. And the first one is they had the list come out. The 33rd team put out that list that said the last time every team has won 11-plus games. And for Washington, it's been since 1991. Had you realized it had been that long?
Not really, to be honest with you. I guess the threshold is a little tricky because the threshold they used was 11. If they had used 10, we would have been, in a somewhat better, state. So around here, we had always talked about how many times have we won 10 games. I think it might be, 2 or 3 times. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's not a lot. And traditionally I've always felt like 11 wins is a really, really good season. So I guess when you think about it, it kind of makes sense. But man, when you see it in just sort of like black and white like that, it really is jarring.
Yeah, I haven't been a fan. I started being a fan in 99. So I came about the time that Dan Snyder came, and I actually came with Spurrier because I'm a Florida Gator. So that's how my fandom became. But I haven't seen any kind of winning except for those maybe 2 years of the 10 wins. It's been forever. And so I can't even fathom the OGs like yourself, how long it's been for you to even see the winning.
Right. And, I'll say I was in denial for 15 years or so. I mean, I kept saying, well, yeah, I mean, we're a championship pedigree team. I mean, of course we're going to be in the mix. And then it sort of became obvious in the mid 2000s. Wait a second, nothing's going to change here. Right. We had a little respite when Joe came back, but even that was kind of different. He didn't have the same mojo. I mean, he brought some respect certainly and some stabilization back and somehow willed us into the playoffs twice, but it wasn't a great run. And then once he left, it just kind of, went right back to old mediocrity again. So yeah, it's been wild, man. A lot of my pride's gone. I really don't wear a lot of burgundy and gold anymore. I got a lot of Redskins stuff that I just don't even have the passion to wear. It's kind of sad, to be honest with you.
It is kind of sad, but maybe this is the year that they kind of move on with the ownership change. Maybe the quarterback change is finally going to prove out, pay dividends. And getting to that quarterback, Sam Howell. Jahan Dotson talked on the Jim Rome show this week about how great Sam Howell has been, how easy it's been for him to transition. Do you think that's just kind of what he's supposed to say, or was there something a little different about this?
I think it's a little both. I think if he was god awful, he probably wouldn't talk him up so much.
Sure.
I mean, obviously he's going to be respectful. He's not going to trash his guy. And I think if you remember, in years past, these guys have all been very, very supportive. And I know they all love Taylor, but they talked him up pretty good too. And we know that as big a gamer as Taylor was, the game was just limited. So I think the early reports have been pretty solid. I like the fact that Jahan said essentially sort of he thinks in his mind, the competition's kind of already over. I know people may not like that, but I kind of like that. I want everybody to know, hey, he's our guy. He may only have one start under his belt, but he's taking leadership. He's doing all the right things. And, my understanding for the guys that have been out there has been a little up and down, but, shouldn't be surprised by that. He's not a grizzled veteran.
Yeah.
But, you've probably heard me say it many times in the air. I'm kind of cautiously optimistic on the kid. He's got a pretty darn good pedigree for a guy that went in the 5th round, super productive in college. I can't remember who it was that we had on the show, or it might have just been on somebody that I heard on a podcast. It might have been it doesn't matter. But a former quarterback said something to the effect of, a guy like Kenny Pickett, who, had like 8-10 touchdowns every year, played 5 years. It wasn't until that last year they had 42 touchdowns or whatever the heck he had that breakout year. Howell was productive every year. It went down a little bit in that last year because he lost some weapons. But for the most part, this is a guy that's been productive his whole life, started as a freshman, picked up right where he left off from high school. So I'm cautiously optimistic. I love his skill set. From what I think I've seen in college and last year in that game, I think we got a little bit of a tougher, stronger Taylor Heineke. So, and hopefully he makes a few better decisions.
And I tend to agree with you mostly. I'm a little bit down just because of where he was drafted, and I think that's totally understandable. But the thing that really worries me is that everybody out there who they don't know any more than a lot of us do, but they all have him ranked in the 30s, the late 20s, the 30s in the league, and
can't argue. He's done nothing, but he's done nothing. So that's fine. I mean, I don't want him ranked 11th or something. I mean, he's done nothing. So I don't even care. It's like, okay, you put him 28, 29, 30. What? I mean, that's fine. He played one game. I can't argue with it. And there's going to be a lot of pressure on him. He's going to have to perform pretty quickly because we all know Ron's coaching for his life. But for some reason, I just feel like he's got a toughness to him, an expectation level to him, and he's got a track record to him. But look, for whatever reason, he slipped to the 5th round. I like to joke around on the show and say, basically, 4th round. He was first pick of the 5th round. That's basically 4th round. Right. But still, look, if they didn't sign Carson or trade for him, whatever it was, and have $28 million committed to him, they might have drafted him earlier. They didn't need him, I mean, they might have drafted him a round or two earlier. Then, if he was a 3rd round pick, you might have thought, a little differently. So you can't get too caught up in that. Let's look at the skill set. Let's look at the track record, the pedigree. And so far, I like what I see. I know he loves football. I've heard some funny stories about him in college about, he really get caught up in chicks and running around and being a quarterback star. And I mean, this guy just loves football. I believe his dad was like his coach, from early on. So, I think this is a guy that's committed to film, committed to getting better. And frankly, I like his skill set. If he was 2 inches taller, he probably would have gone in the 2nd round or higher.
Yeah, for sure. And are you a believer that Eric Bieniemy is the guy to be able to make him that?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean,
but are you a believer though?
Maybe. I mean, I'm hopeful. Yeah. I'm always somewhat hopeful as we get close to the season. Yeah. But when you've worked with Pat Mahomes, it kind of makes everybody look good, right? So I just don't know what to think. I mean, I think he works hard. I think the guy's learned under the best. He's played at a super high level. He's obviously a successful guy in life. So it sounds like he's demanding. Yeah, and I'm hopeful that he's creative and that he brings some of those elements, even though we don't have Mahomes, bring some of those elements if nothing else, just for surprise, change of pace. With Turner, who's a nice guy, never seemed like he kind of settled into an identity. I never felt like we got exotic enough and we were sort of consistently, like a 2023 offense. Right. It just never seemed like that. And, I don't know why. And maybe that's just that conflict that you have when you have a guy like Ron, who's old school, wants to pound the football, and you got Jack Del Rio there, and, he wants, to play probably a more ball control style. And then, here we are in 2023 and guys are slinging it 60 times a game and we're like kind of all over the place. Yeah. So I'm hopeful that Bieniemy gets to run it his way. I know JP Finley was telling me today that, when you go out to the park, it's Jack Del Rio and it's Bieniemy. They're running the show. Mm-hmm. And Ron's just kind of like old school, just kind of like overseeing. Mm-hmm. So it sounds like he's kind of turning it over to Bieniemy. And, I'm cautiously optimistic.
We'll see if that's a good thing halfway through the year where their standing is. But let's go to the other side of the ball. And really the big thing is you've got Chase and Montez, who are both on the last year of their deals. And so they're both up for contracts. Let me ask you this, based on what you know now. And let's say you had to make the decision today. Mm-hmm. You had to sign one, but you could only sign one of those two today. You can't wait until the end of the year. Which one of those two are you signing?
I mean, I would sign Montez. I think he's done more, produced more. I don't hear some of the whispers of some of the things that I've heard about Chase. I'm not trying to disparage the guy, but I just don't know how all in and, does he really want to be great or does he just want to, be famous? I don't know. Yeah. Look, Montez, I think has more there too. Like, I still don't think we've seen the best of Montez, but he's been relatively healthy and, he's produced more consistently than Chase has. So, I mean, push comes to shove. I would absolutely sign Montez over Chase if I could only have one. I was talking to somebody today and said, hey, look, don't be surprised if this doesn't really start out great, if the trade deadline isn't very interesting. So, I don't think they're going to do anything now because you'd just, look, the guy does have all the ability in the world. We're all rooting for him. Sure. So, let's just see what we got. I'd rather have him than Casey Tuhill. So let's see what he can do. Yeah. But if it doesn't pan out and he's tracking for another, 2 sacks on the season, I think, they might just cut bait come trade deadline. We'll see. Hopefully it doesn't come to that.
Yeah. Okay.
Hopefully he shoves it in all our faces.
I've been saying the same thing. Hopefully he proves us all wrong and tells us makes us look really stupid, and then we can say sorry and then have a defensive end that's going to be challenging for Pro Bowls every year. That's what we all want. Right. All right. So let's talk about, if I can. I didn't get to listen yet to today's show, and you did talk a little bit about Kareem Hunt and the rumor that's going around about bringing in Kareem Hunt to what I consider an already extremely solid running back room with Gibson, Robinson, and Rodriguez. We'll see what a 6th rounder can bring. But is that a move that you make? You bring in Kareem Hunt?
I mean, I was kind of lukewarm on it on this show. I mean, I agree with you, but I'm always kind of pro our guys. I was pro Jason Campbell, I've been pro the tight ends, even though that room other than Logan hasn't really done anything. I still am pro tight end room. I still think there's some ability there and I think they'll get something out of it. I kind of feel the same way about the running backs. I feel like Gibby could do all the things Hunt could do and he's a lot younger. But you know what? He's a proven guy. If you want to bring him in and, for $1 million, $1.5 million or whatever, you're not breaking the bank by any stretch. Sure. Why not add up to there's got to be depth. Guys get hurt. I don't think he's going to come in here and star and have 15 touchdowns. Right. I think last year he had 4. But yeah, I mean, I'll take him. I'm not dying on that. I think we're going to be fine. Yeah. I mean, I think Robinson's solid. I like Gibby. I think Gibby might have an expanded role this year. Who knows what, Rodriguez is going to do. But if you want to bring him in there and add him to the mix, sure. Why not?
What does it hurt? What competition never hurt? And if he's not good enough, then you let him go if you're not paying him a lot.
It seems like a low risk deal to me. So, I mean, I wouldn't have a problem with it.
Yeah, agreed. And last question before we let you go, I'm going to switch sports real quick. We don't talk a whole lot of Wizards, but I mean, the Bradley Beal decision on whether or not to trade him or whether or not he allows you to be traded. Are you in favor of a full blow up? Are you in favor of a trade Beal, keep KP? Or are you in favor of keeping Beal and trying to build around him?
I think the most important piece you have to move is Brad. And it's, again, we've tried to emphasize this kind of all week in the last couple. Look, it's not nothing against him. Guy's a great player, great person, been awesome for the community. Everybody likes him, but I just think they need to kind of blow it up. I'm not super interested in, getting to the bottom and clawing your way back up. I wish it could be a quick rebuild. But I think they need a fresh start. It's just the salary is so, it just hamstrings you so much. The guy's only playing 45, 50 games a year at this point. I'm willing to just kind of move on and take whatever you can get. I like Porzingis. I'm kind of dumb enough, again, to kind of maybe try to build around Porzingis because of his skill set, which I do think translates in this league. But again, I'm always partial to the guys. You can move on from Kuzma. I think JP's probably right. My co-host, he's more of a stat patter guy on a bad team. Maybe on a really good team might be a good fourth option or something. But it sounds like Porzingis wants to opt in. He's not going to find anybody else give him $36 million a year. Right. So let's move on from Brad. The big news to me is he's kind of indicated that if they tell him they're going to rebuild, well, he doesn't want to be around for that. All right, we're going to rebuild. Yeah. So let's go. And that hopefully, that opens it up, and he can't just sit there and go, oh, I only want to go to the Heat or something. No, Brad, we're going to rebuild here. It's nothing against you. It's just not working. And hopefully that opens it up, gives them 5 or 6 different teams where they could try to find a fit. And frankly, I don't really care what we get in return. Yeah. Let's just kind of reset. But I don't think I want a total reset where we didn't have KP, we didn't have anybody of sort of note to build around. I'd like to build around him for another year and see how that goes. Yeah. And I'd be cautiously, optimistic, but again, proof will be in the pudding,
That's right. And it's fair to say, I think from my standpoint, I'm sure for you, that these new executives that Ted brought in, these 3 guys, that gives you the most hope of anything.
I think so.
These are outsiders. These guys are proven other places. So I think that gives you hope for the Wizards.
Yeah, and that's what I've said. It's like fresh eyes. That to me has been the most important thing. I mean, do I know anything specifically about these guys? No. I mean, we had Winger on, seems like a great guy, but look, I like that they've come from different organizations. They've had, and they've had responsibilities here, and they're kind of all got to come together. It's kind of this big team. I don't know. I like it. We need that. We were in that Ernie world, even with Tommy, for 20 some years or so, and it just didn't feel like we had a fresh perspective. Now we got, 3 new guys, 3 different perspectives. They've all been successful to different levels. Well, let's see what they could do. I'm cautiously optimistic on that one, too. I don't think it's going to be a quick turnaround, right. And I'm really curious to see what happens in the draft. But, man, if they could just hit on something in the draft, move Brad, boy, you might have something to work with there.
And for the first time in a long time, we've got most of our teams, we've got some hope. We've got some hope with the Commanders and the quarterback. We've got some hope with the Wizards and a new front office. We've got some hope with the Nats and their young prospects that they got coming up. And you even got hope with the Caps, with Ovi and company and a new coach. I know you guys.
That's going to be tough.
Coach Carbs.
The Caps are going to be a tough deal because that's an older team. I mean, I think Ovi's going to give you plenty, but they got a lot of older pieces. I don't know how much back he has left in him, and probably gonna have to move on a guy like Oshie, who it kills me to think giving up on a guy like him. He's like a heart and soul guy. Yeah. I think that's going to be a tough one, and I do think probably, unfortunately, the Nats are still a couple years away from really turning that corner. But there are some signs for sure.
Yeah. Well, Eric, I appreciate the time. You can go back to watching the U.S. Open. I think Ricky Fowler is about to tee off, and Schauffele and all them for their round. And so you got 6 hours of golf to watch them the rest of the day. But appreciate you coming on, taking the time to talk to us here on Ref the District. And again, that's Eric Bickle from the Sports Junkies, 106.7 The Fan, every morning, Monday through Friday, 6 to 10 a.m. on like I said, 106.7 The Fan and NBC Sports Washington. Thank you, Eric, for joining us.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it. Take care.
And until next time, be a fan.